Look at your salvia right now. Is it the vibrant, purple-spiked pride of your garden? Or has it transformed into a tired, dusty green stick with a few sad flowers clinging to the top? There is a hidden rhythm to this plant that almost nobody tells you about. And today, I'm going to reveal the Tuscan secret to non-stop blooms until the first frost. If your plant is starting to flop over after a light rain or looking sparse despite your best efforts, you are standing at a crossroads. This is the month that separates the masters from the amateurs. Most gardeners see a drooping leaf in the August heat and reach for the hose, or they see a lack of blooms and reach for the fertilizer. But those exact saving instincts are precisely what are killing your plant. In fact, if you make the wrong move this week, you might destroy a salvia that could have flourished for another 10 years. I'm sharing the exact steps your salvia is screaming for right now, including a mistake with a pair of scissors that costs most people their entire second flush of flowers. But before we dive into the dirt, please tell me, which US state or growing zone are you gardening in? Drop it in the comments right now, because a salvia in the humidity of the Gulf Coast needs a completely different strategy than one in the dry heat of the Rockies. I read every single comment to make sure this advice fits your backyard. I learned everything I know about these plants from my grandfather, Nonno Luigi. I can still see him in the hills of Tuscany, his skin as weathered as the terracotta pots he loved. While other farmers were frantically watering their wilting gardens under the August sun, Nonno would sit on a stone wall, hands stained with soil and resin, just watching. I remember asking him why he wasn't helping the salvia. He took his pipe out of his mouth, looked at me with those sharp, experienced eyes, and said, "Bambino, the earth is not a factory. If you treat her like one, she will stop working for you." He taught me that salvia is not a plant that wants your constant help. It wants your respect for its nature. To understand how to save your plant, you first have to understand the mechanism of survival. Salvia didn't evolve in a pampered greenhouse. It evolved in dry, rocky, sun-drenched landscapes where water is a luxury and the soil is lean. When you see your plant wilting in the 90-degree afternoon sun, your brain sends a signal: thirsty. But here is the biological truth. Heat stress and overwatering produce identical symptoms. The plant droops not because it lacks water, but because its internal cooling system is overwhelmed. If you add water to soil that is already moist, you aren't giving it a drink. You are drowning the roots in a process called root rot, which is the leading cause of salvia death in American gardens. Nonno Luigi's first rule was simple: trust your finger, not your eyes. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it feels even slightly damp, walk away. Only water when that top layer is bone dry. And when you do water, don't just sprinkle the leaves. That's an invitation for disease. You must soak the ground deeply, reaching the very bottom of the root zone. Then let the soil dry out completely before you even think about touching the hose again. This mimics the natural rainfall patterns of the Mediterranean and forces the roots to grow deep and strong. But even perfect watering won't save a plant that is starving for light. Salvia is a full sun athlete. It needs 6 to 8 hours of direct, unfiltered light. No exceptions. You might think your plant is in full sun because it was in May, but the position of the sun changes. As trees leaf out and the sun's angle shifts higher in August, that sunny spot from planting day might now be in a shade trap. If your stems are stretching out, getting leggy, and only flowering at the very tips, your plant is literally trying to walk toward the light. Studies have shown that even a little afternoon shade can slash your bloom count by a staggering 60%. Check your shadows today, not your memory. Now, we come to the part where most gardeners commit botanical sabotage, the pruning. You see the dead spikes, and you want to refresh the plant. So you take the shears and cut the whole thing back to a stump. Stop. For common varieties like Salvia nemorosa, this is a violent shock that removes the very buds the plant is trying to push for its next cycle. Nonno Luigi used to say, "You don't cut a head to trim the hair." The secret is precise deadheading. You must follow the spent flower spike down to the first set of healthy leaves, or the next side shoot, and cut right there. This redirects the plant's energy away from making seeds and back into making flowers. A blunt shear down costs you weeks of beauty. A precise cut gives you a floral explosion. And while we are talking about energy, let's talk about the nitrogen trap. We've been conditioned to think more fertilizer equals more life. But with Salvia, less is almost always more. If you keep feeding it throughout the summer, you are producing soft growth, stems that are too weak to hold their own weight. This is why your plants flop over like they've given up after a thunderstorm. High nitrogen actually suppresses the flowers in favor of leaves. Unless your salvia is in a container, it likely doesn't need anything more than a bit of compost. If your plant is flopping, it isn't hungry. It's overweight from too much junk food fertilizer. You might be sitting there thinking, but no, my leaves have a white powder on them. Surely I must do something. This is powdery mildew, and it is the shadow of August. It thrives in humid, stagnant air. Instead of buying expensive chemicals, look at the airflow. Are your plants packed too tightly? Is the foliage staying wet overnight? Nonno's remedy was simple. Space them out so the wind can dance between the stems and only water at the base. If you see yellow leaves at the very bottom, don't panic. That's often just normal aging. But if the whole plant looks weak and the soil is soggy, you're looking at root rot, and the only cure is to stop watering immediately. Then there are the pests. Aphids and spider mites love the heat, but they are usually just opportunists. They attack plants that are already stressed by too much nitrogen or a lack of water. Before you reach for the poison, try a strong blast of water from the hose. Most of the time, the ladybugs will do the work for you if you just give them a chance. Remember, a pest infestation is often a symptom, not the root problem. As we move into the peak of summer, you must realize that not all salvia are created equal. If you have Salvia greggi, it is even more sensitive to soggy soil than the others. If you have the Mexican bush sage, it won't tolerate a single wet foot. Know your variety because your plant's life depends on it. Ultimately, caring for your salvia isn't just about gardening. It's about regaining control. It's about looking at the natural world and understanding the why instead of just buying the next bottle of miracle spray. When you stop guessing and start observing, you aren't just a consumer anymore. You're a steward of the earth. You're doing what Nonno Luigi did, listening to what the soil is trying to tell you. If you're the kind of person who would rather understand the soul of a plant than just treat it like a decoration, then you are in the right place. We don't do shortcuts here. We do knowledge. Which of these August mistakes have you been making?